Whata?
And g'day viewers, I'm Michael.
And I'm Janet. And this week's podcast episode we talk about OPOs, or better known as other people's opinions.
In this episode we will explore a little bit of NLP using the neuro-linguistic programming communication model, the negativity bias, why we tend to hold on to other people's opinions in high regard, and why we should let them go, because they're exactly what they are.
Other people's opinions. So if you're ready to make your own decisions and learn the mantra, what anyone else thinks of me is none of my business, then listen up. Whata?
And g'day.
Welcome to this week's episode. I'm Janet.
And I'm Michael. And today we'll talk about OPOs, or in other words, other people's opinions.
One of the wisest things I've ever read is from Wayne Dyer. What other people think about me is none of my business. Why? Because their opinion is their opinion. It is not a fact, It is just speculation, coloured with their perceptions and through their filters and lenses. Do you agree, Mitch?
Absolutely do, Janet, because everyone will view an event through their own perceptions and filters. And a great way to describe what happens is by using the NLP communication model. In NLP, it says that the map is not the territory. And what does that mean? Well, what it means is the internal representations that we make about an event are not the event itself. It is our view of the event. So what happens is when we witness an external event, we run that event through our internal representation of what occurred. This then combines with the physiology to create a state. So have you ever noticed that some people have to see something to get it, whereas others have to have it explained or so they can hear it, or others need to feel it? Well, this is at the heart of the NLP communication model.
We process information and events visually with our eyes, auditorily with our hearing, kinesthetically with our feelings, olfactorily with our sense of smell, and gustatorially with our taste. So the external event comes in through our five senses and we filter it and manage this with our neurology. Then the really tricky thing that happens is, as we manage the perception of the event, we then delete, distort, and generalize the information or the event. Deletion is when we selectively pay attention to certain aspects of an experience and we completely ignore others. Distortion is when we misrepresent an event, such as seeing a piece of wood floating on a stream and thinking it's an otter swimming, which I actually did on a recent trip. I said, look, Mick, an otter. But no.
I thought it was the Loch Ness Monster, quite frankly.
It was a branch. And it wasn't my eyesight, it was just my perception. And generalization, going back to NLP, is when we draw global conclusions based on one or two past experiences, such as making a rash generalisation that the weather is always miserable in Ireland because the time you were on holiday for 3 days, it rained the entire time.
And it really only rained for 3 days while we were there last time.
And we were there for 2 weeks. You didn't stop to think that you were there in the middle of winter. You just conclude that it's always like that.
So we delete, distort and generalise the information from the outside that comes in from our senses, and that's based on one of our 5 filters. So our meta program, which is our master program, our values, our beliefs, our decisions and our memories. And these are individual and vastly different from one person to another. And then these 5 filters determine how we internally represent an event. And it is our internal representation that puts us in a certain state and creates a certain physiology. This state then determines our behaviour. And the NLP communication model determines how we process all the information. So this is why when 2 people see the same event, they don't have the same response or perceptions of the event. This is exactly why other people's opinions are just that. They are other people's opinions.
Why then do we place so much emphasis on OPOs when we know that they're not facts? It's a really tricky one to think about, isn't it? It's interesting when you make, create or perform something, you have wonderful reviews and feedback from, say, 10 people. However, if the 11th person gives you a negative or non-constructive comment, that is the one that sticks.
Yep, ain't it?
Do you ever find that? Well, this is because our fabulous brains are hardwired to the negativity bias. And just what is this negativity bias? Well, it's our tendency not only to record negative things more easily, but also to ruminate on them. The negativity bias means that we feel the slap of an insult way more powerfully than we do feel the pleasure of positive recognition.
Oh, that's crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy, but it's how we are.
Well, that's because negative information causes a surge in activity in a critical information processing area in the brain. Our behaviours and attitudes tend to be shaped more powerfully by bad news, bad experiences, or negative information. This negativity bias section of the brain stems back to our early ancestors needing to be on constant high alert in order to survive. And even though we've come a long way from our cave-dwelling cousins, the negativity bias still has a major role in how our brains operate today.
Research has shown that the negative bias still holds court on how we think, respond, and feel. Everyday areas where you might feel the results of this bias include in your relationships, communication, decision-making, and the way you perceive people, or as we are discussing here, other people's opinions about you. Nobel Prize-winning researchers Kahneman and Tversky discovered that when making decisions, people constantly place greater weight on negative aspects of an event than they do on the positive. It also helps explain why we as a society are so enthralled by negative news and events. People are drawn to horror stories or movies, and the dark side of life intrigues us all.
Yeah, indeed it does. And recently in London, we visited the Jack the Ripper Museum in Aldgate. And as we were moving through the rooms, I was thinking, why are we so fascinated by these horrific events and the unsolved mystery from nearly 140 years ago? Well, researching for this podcast helped me understand how and why we are so drawn to the dark side. So how do we learn to tip the scales away from the negativity bias so that we make better decisions, have happier lives, and let other people's opinions slide off us like we're made of Teflon? Well, just how? You tell us, Jan.
Well, firstly, when you feel the twang after someone's unwanted comment or opinion and it's coming at you, just notice it and say something to yourself like, there goes my negativity bias into action. Thanks, brain. Well noted. Secondly, and we all do this, if you find yourself dwelling on it, here's a pretty easy trick that works. Picture the word or the comment in your mind's eye and then imagine yourself pressing a delete button and watch the words disappear. Another approach is to write the words out on a piece of paper and shred or burn them. Getting them out of your head and onto the paper sounds really simple, but being able to look at them for what they are, another person's opinion, they do not belong to you, and you can safely let them go.
And if you find that these opinions creep into your own self-talk, make sure that you gently notice them and then reassure yourself that they do not belong to you. They are someone else's. And thirdly, and most importantly to note here, is that our lovely fragile ego tends to grab a hold of these negative opinions and then goes to town with our self-talk. And we need to be really kind to ourselves when this happens. Again, you can acknowledge the fragile ego and say something like, I know you're trying to protect me with the negative bias, and thank you for that, but that the OPOs don't belong to me.
Gently affirm to yourself. Really importantly, you can either write this down or just say it out loud. I am safe, I am loved, and I approve of me. Repeat these 3 statements often. You will find that they'll help you to build the positive bias muscle so you can meet OPOs with some really great strength and purpose. The problem with OPOs is that they are exactly that. Other people's opinions, not yours. Again, we're reiterating this. They are theirs. They own them, not you. So why would you ever take them on? Really think about that. Why would you place so much emphasis on them?
I've got a great mate who describes OPOs a little bit more colourfully. And when he's faced with an OPO, he simply says, what the F would they know? And now I know that there's a big element of sarcasm in when he says this. But do you know what? He's absolutely right. And it's a good philosophy to live by, because another person isn't going through what you're going through. They're not feeling the same emotions. They don't have the same view. They're not in your state processing information how you process it and with the same filters as you. So you need to make your decisions. And it's not just opinions we're talking about here. An opinion can also be an expectation, like we discussed in our episode on expectations. You know, the kind of expectations I mean? Things such as parents pushing their wishes for their child's career choices or what they should do. They can all be well-meaning, but once again, they are just their opinions and expectations, not the child.
Now, I also want to differentiate here requested advice versus an opinion or unsolicited advice. Yes, there are times you will ask someone for their advice, and that is valid, particularly if they've been through a similar situation to what you are currently going through. I'm often asking for someone's advice on how to handle a situation. It can be super duper helpful, but it's still important to remember how they are viewing it and filtering it, and then make your decision as to if the advice works for you in your current circumstance. This is opposed to unsolicited advice, which we all get plenty of.
Oh, plenty of that.
Where someone tells you something along the lines of, well, you know what I'd do if I were you.
Mm-hmm.
Heard that before?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they are not you, and you didn't ask for their advice, so politely let it go and make your own decisions. I remember reading a Michael Leunig poem when I was about 7 years old. It has stayed with me all through the years, and I hope you can find some comfort in it too. It goes like this. Come sit down beside me, I said to myself, and although it doesn't make sense, I held my own hand as a small sign of trust, and together I sat on the fence.
I love that one.
You really are your own best friend. It's time you started treating yourself like you are.
Now, there will be days when OPOs and the negative bias wins out, and there are those days that you'll need to practice self-kindness most of all. So do something that you enjoy. Go for a walk or a run to clear your mind. Stand barefoot on some grass and just breathe in Mother Nature. Run a lovely warm bath with some fragrant essential oils. Get in a spa, and just chill out. Curl up on the couch under a warm blanket and watch a feel-good movie or one of your all-time favourites. And then take the time to make a list of all that is currently in your life that you are grateful for.
Practicing gratitude and reading over this list is an instant pick-me-upper. It brings to mind that there is just so much to be thankful for, and that days like this and opinions like those will pass. Mm-hmm. Love and blessings until next time.
See ya.
Thanks for watching this video, and we hope that you got a lot out of it. We would love it, be grateful and appreciative if you would take the time to like this video, comment if you feel inclined, and share with any friends that you think would benefit from this. We are constantly creating new great content, so also remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the awesome material that we have coming up. See you soon.